Yay! We are live! Welcome to the very first debut episode of Avenue A, where we talk acting, networking, and the industry. Dun dun dun. I'm so excited. I've been working on this concept for this show for a while now, and I've been developing it behind the scenes, and I'm incredibly pumped to share it all with you today. Yay! So I want to share, before I bring on my very special guest today, I want to share with you all a little bit about the concept behind the show, and also a little bit about me, your host. So I am Kelsey Bentz. I grew up in Portland, Oregon on the West Coast, and I'm an actor and creator, singer, dancer, and I just graduated from NYU Tisch like 2 days ago. So I thought now would be the perfect time to launch this platform where I celebrate and connect with my fellow artists, and also I want to debunk some of the mysteries about the acting industry and what that means, because I think it's kind of a scary and daunting concept, even coming out of a BFA program like I just have. So that's why I created the show. I want to foster an artistic community and connect with my fellow artists and learn from them, and then also create a accessible resource for others who are also in the same boat, who are wanting to pursue an artistic career or artistic hobbies, and have questions or concerns or confusions, because we all do. So that is the concept. I'm really excited to announce our first and introduce our first guest today. His name is PEARSON Kunz. And so a little bit about Pearson before I bring him on the screen. Him and I have known each other for years. We grew up in the same hometown. And Pearson had a very rich theatrical background growing up, and then he pursued his degree in theater and film from the University of New Orleans, and then he came back to Portland, and since then has been involved extensively in professional film sets, music video sets, commercial productions, and web series. He also is the founder, artistic director, and executive producer for Golden Pride Productions, which is an inclusive arts collective that focuses on the socially conscious production of contemporary film and theater works, exploring identity through the use of small budgets and maximized community involvement. I'm so excited to welcome Pearson onto our show.
Hello.
Welcome, Pearson.
Hi, Kelsey. Thanks for
How are
having me.
you? Of course. Thanks for being our first guest.
Absolutely. I'm so excited.
Yay. How are you doing? How's your day going?
I am actually having an incredible, productive day, despite being stuck inside and feeling so, tied down in this quarantine time. I'm feeling inspired and feeling happy to be here and have this to do too.
Yay, me too. I know, I've been feeling like very stagnant lately, especially since classes ended for me, and I'm like in the real world, but still at my parents' house because of quarantine. Mm-hmm. So this is just very fun that we get to do this.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. Mm-hmm. My first question for you. I want to know about your motivation to create and produce your own work. So a little bit about Pearson. He always is creating his own content. Ever since I knew him when we were kids, he was always had new ideas and was writing and producing and creating. And to this day, that's what he loves to do. So how has creating your own material been instrumental to your growth as an artist and an actor and a human being?
Well, it all started back when I was a little kid. But basically, my mom, I wanted to be in like an acting theater camp so bad. And my mom said, just do it yourself. Just make your own theater experience in our backyard. and you'll get the lead. So I was like, okay, true.
Good logic.
And yeah, and I did that, and I absolutely did play exactly the character I wanted to play. And then I got hooked all the way, and just having that artistic control and that ability to tell exactly the stories I want to tell
Mm.
just became my norm. And I've always had this personality that has just so many stories floating around in my head, and every time I see something new, I create a story around it, or
Yeah.
I'll go to a location and think like, what can I film here, or what like can I write for this place? And so basically I've created my own work mostly out of necessity, just to declutter my brain basically. So I have
Interesting.
so many things I want to make in this life, and I'll never be able to make them all, but the more I make and the more stories I tell that I'm passionate about telling, the more I sort of chip away at that plethora of stories that's just always floating around.
So because you mentioned you have so many ideas that are always coming in your head, there must be a certain sort of lack of pressure to make any one idea like the end all be all, because you know you're going
Yes.
to have another one come along. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So that it takes a lot of the stakes out of each new thing, and the more pieces I create or the more things I write, the better I get. So
Hmm.
for me, each new thing is like getting me one step closer to something even better. So rather than being held up on that one thing and trying to make it the best possible thing, I just try to view it as this thing is going to be whatever it is, and then that's going to make the next thing even better. So I'm always one step ahead, I guess. Like I'm never putting too much stakes or like pressure on that one project of the moment. And like people that have worked with me too know that even while I'm working on a project, I'm talking about the next project,
That's true.
just
I
because I'm
can
so
vouch for that.
excited to do the next thing while I'm doing the thing I'm doing right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
the pressure is relieved. And then that ultimately, like you asked about my growth as an artist, it makes me
Yeah.
grow more because I have to keep making things and trying things and learning. And so much of art for me is just trial and error. And you can
Yeah.
only learn so much. And that's especially what I learned from actually going to an art school. And you might have experienced this too with your BFA, is like
Mm-hmm.
you can learn a lot in the classroom, but you actually have to produce things and do them and be in shows or
Yeah.
write them
Amen.
yourself. And
Yeah.
then you actually apply those skills and solidify them.
And you learn so much more when you are in charge of what you're creating too,
Mm-hmm.
because you learn um, like about your own identity, I guess, like what matters to you and what direction you want to go in. Whereas
Absolutely.
I know, like in school, sometimes it's like we're completing assignments to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy certain requirements, but out in the world, you know, it's that doesn't exist anymore. So
Absolutely. And the
yeah.
two have never been, like I was saying, like my first artistic experience of my life that was so transformative. I was the creator and the actor. So I've never had this separation. And the
Mm.
few times that I've acted like purely as an actor without any stakes in the production, just like showing up and acting, have been some of the least fulfilling artistic
Mm.
experiences because
Interesting.
the stakes are so different,
Yeah.
and like my investment in the project is so different. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Um, so I also want to talk about sort of like when you're creating your own art, there's definitely like a business kind of component to it. You know, like you
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out being a creative individual takes a certain level of organization. You have to develop your brand, I guess, and market yourself, and also stay connected, both to the artistic community, and then also the community that you are offering your creation to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. The audience.
Exactly, the audience. So I find that two of your great strengths as an artist are utilizing the resources that are available to you, and then also you have a great ability to ask for help when you need
Mm.
it. And I know that that's not an easy thing. It's certainly not easy for me, but you have a great ability to do that. So I I'm wondering, how do you employ and sort of maintain your network in that way?
Yeah, I think the most damaging narrative, well, one of the most damaging narratives for artists is that people don't want to help you or people don't believe in you. And
Yeah.
you hear it a lot of times, and this advice is given out all the time, but like the people in the casting room want to cast you. They would love for you to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And like everyone in your life, probably, I'm assuming, wants you to be successful and wants you to be an incredible artist and wants to see you go all the way.
Yeah.
And so most of the block is in your own mind,
Mm.
that people don't want to give you whatever it is you need to make your art happen. So
Mm.
once you get past that, really, I'm always asking people for random things. And it is what it takes to make the productions I make, because there's so many things that go into a film, there's so many things that go into a play, whatever it might be, even just writing, like so many eyes on the writing piece and the feedback you get from having lots of different people read it. People want to
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to tell yourself, like, oh, no one would ever want to read this. People don't have the time. People don't care about this.
Right.
So once you get over that, the whole world opens up. And I
Hmm.
think one of the cool parts about being in Portland, as opposed and doing my productions here as opposed to maybe in LA or New York, where it is more saturated with production and more saturated with art creation, is
Yeah.
that people are excited to be involved in a big project in Portland and a film project and be
Mm.
part of something together. So it's not, it feels nerve wracking and it is vulnerable to ask people for help, but whatever it is, people love to be a part of a creation. I
Hmm.
think that's one of the beauties of being human, is that we all get to be connected together and make things together. And that's one of my passions, is bringing all different kinds of people all together with one common goal. One of the ways that I have built that network, which is what you were asking
Yeah.
too, in asking for help, is crowdfunding has been a
Mm.
huge, huge source of support, not just financially for our films, but it builds an audience and it builds investment in your productions. So even if people aren't like donating a location, or they're not acting in your film, or they're not serving a job on the set, they feel connected to the piece and they're excited to see where it goes and they're excited to share it with their friends, and they feel connected to whatever's being made, which is awesome, because then they come back and they help you on the next project too, and then they're investing in you and whatever you're working on next. So it builds this really cool network in this way that I think from the outside it seems a little simple, like someone's just giving you $3
Yeah.
to do whatever, but it is actually creating a super huge community. Our poster designer found us on Indiegogo, and he lives in Australia, and I've never met him in my
No
whole
way.
life. But he
Yeah.
saw our Indiegogo and said, "Can I design the poster for you?" So it's all these
That's
random
awesome.
connections that I wouldn't have made otherwise if I hadn't asked for that. And asking for money is
Yeah.
so uncomfortable and weird, and we're
It
trained to
is. Yeah.
not want to do that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, we have to pay for things, and people do want to be involved, and it's actually a really cool, easy way to be involved in something cool. And I've donated
Yeah.
to crowdfunding campaigns myself, and I'm excited to see those films take off.
Well, I think that right there is huge, I think, because not only, you employ your community to help you, but you also are an active
Mm,
part of other people's community, and it's an equal relationship, I know, for you in that sense. And I think that speaks volumes, because if you're not reaching out and giving back and being available to other artists
mm-hmm.
and other people who are needing help, then there's no way that we can expect other people to help us. It's a two-way
Absolutely.
street.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, going off of that, um, there's such a sort of like shame involved. At least for me, I know, like, when I feel like I have to ask for help, I'm always scared that they're gonna say no, or someone's, and then I take it personally, and then it can really, become a very tough thing to deal with. So how when you do reach out and ask for help and someone isn't able to, or how do you deal with the feelings that, like, how do you not take that personally, I
Mm.
guess? Yeah.
Um, that's an interesting question. I think, well, the first thing I would say is I set myself up for a yes. So I'm not asking ever for things that are unreasonable or
Sure.
crazy,
Yeah.
and then I ask it in a way that gives whoever I'm asking maximum flexibility and maximum
Mm.
opportunity to say yes.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying, can we use your house for these hours at this specific time and have 30 people over and do this?
Right. Right.
Which of course would be a no, but I be as make sure I'm as flexible as possible, and yeah, so set that up for a yes. But if it is a
Smart. Okay.
no, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, there's always, that's the benefit of having a network, and that's like, you're talking about networking here, and the essential element of
Yeah.
having a large network is that if it is a no from one person, there are more people. So when
Yeah.
you have a
That's
small
right.
network, it hinders you as an artist, because
Hmm.
if you do get that no, which is of course going to happen,
Yeah.
because not everyone can do everything. If you do
Right.
get that no, you need to be able to move to the next person that can possibly be the yes. And it's not personal either. Like, if you can't work with one person in your network, maybe the next person you work with is a better fit. And it's not,
Yeah.
it's just, there's so many projects and there's so much down the line. Like I'm saying, I'm always thinking about the next project and the next project.
Mm-hmm.
It feels less personal in the moment, because maybe this just isn't the one and the next one's the one.
I love that mindset too, specifically thinking about actors, because that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is too. Like every audition that we go to and every room that we enter, it's like it could be the one, but there's always going to be another room and there's always going to be another audition. So if this one's a no, it's hard not to take that personally. But I love that mindset that you talk about looking to the next. You look forward so that you're
Mm-hmm.
not dwelling on the what ifs of the now, I guess.
Yeah. And the more you submit to that mindset, the less fulfilling it is. Like,
Yeah,
if it's a end all be all, that one rejection is going to ruin it.
that's
And
right.
like, to acting
Mm.
specifically, we had a sort of a story about that. Is we cast a film and we made the mistake of making three of the characters directly related to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had to find people that looked like each other. So we had this one girl who was incredible for the part, but just didn't look like any of the other people we had auditioned, so it wouldn't make sense to cast her.
Yeah.
But then we reached out to her after we had finished that film. Like I'm saying, the next project, we reached out to her and we said, what film do you want to make? You're incredible, we want to cast you. And
Yeah.
so that was Bobby McKenzie, and we ended up making a whole film with her that she helped
Yeah.
write and
She's
create
incredible.
herself.
Ugh, yeah.
So yeah, even if it doesn't work out in
That's a
that
perfect
room, I
example.
know from my experience on the production side that, like, that does not mean we wouldn't want to work with you in the future too.
And potentially like in a bigger capacity, like it
Yeah,
turned
even
out for
bigger.
Bobby McKenzie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, I want to move on to my favorite question. So, who is someone that is not currently in your network that you wish was? And then how would you go about getting them into your network?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I think like my dream collaborators
Yeah.
would be the Duplass brothers.
Okay.
They are two incredible filmmakers, who share a lot of my philosophies around filmmaking and creation. They put a lot
Yeah.
of emphasis on the journey and the creative process of actually making the film,
Hmm.
and less on the end product of what it will look like.
Hmm.
Um, they're not like the Wes Andersons of the world, who are hyper focused on every shot and color and placement and everything. They're like
Yeah.
capturing life and experiences, which is what's exciting to me as an artist. So
Yeah.
I would love to, yeah, collaborate with them at some point in my life. How I would go about that. Now, they are on a very different caliber and echelon, if you will. Um, and so that one would be challenging.
Yeah.
I've been to the Sundance Film Festival a couple of times, and they have fantastic networking opportunities set up intentionally. And just being at
Yeah.
Sundance is it's so many powerful artists, movers
Yeah,
and
you're
shakers
just
in one tiny
hobnobbing.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're always eating lunch next to someone who is important and who
Right.
will be important if they're not already.
Yeah.
Um, so I would definitely head to Sundance or one of the larger film festivals is where I've made the most connections
And
for
you
my
just went
network.
like to in order to be there, right? Like you just went as a viewer, as a guest, like
Yeah, I think that is one of the common misconceptions about these sort of high level film
I
festivals is
didn't even know
that,
you could do that
yeah, you don't have
before
to have
you
a
went.
film in the
Yeah.
festival at all.
Yeah.
It definitely helps and it definitely adds to your credibility.
Sure.
But they have a really cool young filmmakers program that I joined and went through that called the Ignite program, that has a bunch of networking opportunities built into that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I would definitely go to a festival, and it sounds, I don't know. I don't know if it sounds disingenuous or it sounds like maybe even creepy, but like doing the research beforehand of who is going to be at events and who's involved in what films and what their connections are to other people you're
I
interested
don't
in the
think that's
industry.
creepy at all. I think that's just like being well informed.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
mean, it is work too to do that,
Sure.
and it is
Mm.
important work, I think, to know who you want to talk to. I think it's important,
Mm.
especially in networking, to be intentional about who's going to help you and who's going to inspire you
Interesting.
and who's going to hold you back. Because there is, I mean, I'm sure you've come across these people in your artistic experience too, but there are people who are not passionate in the same way you are and are not
Yeah.
going to be like devoted to the same artistic philosophies as you.
That's right. Yeah.
So knowing who those people are and being intentional about seeking them out.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that would specifically get me in contact with the Duplass brothers. The other thing that has, what I will say too, is like they have a production company, and in the past I really wanted to get connected with when I went to school in New Orleans. I really wanted to get connected with the production company behind Beasts of the Southern Wild,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is one of the only production companies based in New Orleans. They do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
filming there, but they're not based there. And and what I did is I actually used a project that I was doing for a class and asked one of the producers, one of the top producers there, if he would do an interview with me for this project. And then we started chatting, and then I ended up getting an internship there, and then meeting a lot of people that are working in that company. And so
Yeah.
going along those lines too with the Duplass brothers specifically and working in their production company or working peripherally to them, I think would be an important step as well.
That's so. Can you just circle back a little bit to when you
Yeah.
wanted to work with the producers of Beast of the Southern Wild, and you just did your research on who was behind that film, right? You knew they were based in New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just reached out to them. Like I think that's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, going back to the narratives that hold us back about asking for help is like
Yeah.
these people, especially people that are not celebrities and actors and like known faces who get approached all the time, it's not that crazy to like reach out to people and talk to them, and they are more accessible than I think we assume they are.
That's
So yeah, I
interesting.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
like especially with things like resources like IMDb Pro, where you can get in contact with agents directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even production company websites are just not places people visit a lot, and emails are on there, and you can just email the people that you want to talk to
Yeah.
and get in contact with them. Um, I also have a habit of making a mental note. I know people have feelings about name dropping or whatever, but I make a mental note of every name that someone drops, and then I know who to talk to if I want to get in contact with those people. So one of my
Yeah.
professors was talking about the producer behind Beast of the Southern Wild
Mm.
and his relationship with that producer.
Yeah.
And then so when the time came and I did want an internship, I reached out through that professor to reach out to the company and then make that possible.
That's so smart. So it's like eh, keeping track of your network, essentially, right? Like
Yeah.
who you know and then who they know. And I think that that's super awesome. It's very inspiring, you know?
Because, yeah, and like not thinking about things as coincidences, I think helps
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
It's like you are connected somehow to the people you want to be connected with. So, yeah, in terms of getting connected with the Duplass brothers, like I would investigate who I know that is working with them or in the same arena as them,
Mm-hmm.
and then see what connections I have there. Even the Department of Motion Pictures, the company I interned with in New Orleans,
Yeah.
maybe connected with them and going through that route. And the people I know that still work there might be an opportunity to collaborate with them. And then long term, I think the key to getting people in your network that you really want is continue to make things and put them out into the world
Yeah.
so that you're engaging with that community and you are showing that you are a dedicated artist that is worth collaborating with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have ideas and that's not as interesting to the people you're trying to get in your network if you have nothing to show for those ideas. So
Yeah.
continuing to make films, and then I mean maybe one day I'll be in a festival with a Duplass brother film, or maybe one day like those circumstances will align and
Right.
then I can pursue the connection that way. But yeah, that's my long term ideas.
I love it. I think the way you talk about it, you break it down in a way that makes a lot of sense, you
Mm.
know? Um, it makes an overwhelming concept of like someone I look up to that I would like to collaborate with. Like, where would I even start, you know? But I resonate so much with what you said about just knowing your shit in a way, right? Like doing your
Mm-hmm.
research and knowing who's who. And um, we learned that in my program too, like knowing who the casting directors are and knowing like your favorite TV shows, like knowing where they're being produced and who's producing them and who's casting them, and sort of keeping track of the the people who are making art that resonates with the kind of art that you want to make. I
Yeah.
think is kind of an underrated thing, um, that can actually just be really helpful.
And I think, I mean, like my last piece of advice around that too would be social media is an incredible way to
True that.
do that. And just
Yeah.
being, you don't have to be in that person's life all the time or be their close personal friend, but you can like every single one of their Instagram posts and comment
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while, and then you'll just be in their periphery. And I know
Yeah.
that, like, when I visit New York, I see a bunch of people that I only see in New York, and otherwise I'm just connected to them on Instagram, or like
Yeah.
people that I've met at festivals I still follow on Instagram, and just stay connected even just a little bit every year makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And it doesn't go unnoticed. You know what I
No.
mean? Like, yeah, I think that's so true. All right, well, we're just about out of time. Is there any last things you want to say, or did we about cover it all?
Oh, I mean, there I could talk for hours about this,
And this is what I
but
love about you.
yes, I just love talking about this. But yeah, I would say just find the narratives in your life that are holding you back, like the fact that people don't want to help you or people want you to fail, and
Yeah.
realize that you're the only one perpetuating that narrative, right? You are,
Amen.
and you're the only one that can overcome it too.
That's right.
So the quicker you realize what those are and the quicker you move past them as an artist, I think that that will get you to where you want to be.
I
Even
love
the
that.
narrative of like, so and so doesn't want to talk to me at this cocktail party is something you just got to say, yeah,
You never
actually, they
know.
probably do. You have
Yeah.
interesting things to say, and they have interesting things they want to tell you.
That's so good. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough for being our very first
Oh,
guest.
thank you
This
so
is
much for having me.
so exciting, and I think we pulled it off, which is
Yeah,
good.
I agree. It was quite smooth.
Yay. Okay, well, thank you so much, Pearson. I want to share um, Pearson's Instagram. If you want to follow him, you can find him. His personal account is at literally Pearson. And then also his production company is called Golden Pride Productions. You can find them at Golden Pride Productions on Instagram. And then also the website www.goldenprideproductions.com. So check him out because he is a gem and such a valuable asset to his community. So
Thank
thank you
you.
again, Pearson.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next week on Avenue A.